Alrighty, welcome back everyone. Today I've got something special. A brand new Tropico island built from the ground up. With Tropico 7 on the horizon, I wanted to try something I've never done. A communist nation built around one of the world's oldest and most profitable industries, manufacturing and exporting weapons. You might be thinking, is that even possible in Tropico 6? If you're not intrepid dictators, I'll show you the whole process, step by step, and share my borderline obsessive tricks along the way. So sit back, subscribe if you're new, and enjoy the show. Getting right into it, I chose Destrozado as my archipelago of choice today. These here are the starting settings that I chose for the video, and I have all the DLC enabled. If you don't play with any DLC, don't worry. I frequently talk about alternatives to the methods that I use throughout the video. But without further ado, let's get into it. Cool beans. And with most islands, the first thing I like to do is pause the game on up and get a lay of the land, get an idea of what it is that we want to accomplish. Now, I already know pretty much what I want to do, and that is to create a metropolitan area on this island here, fill it up with all sorts of cool communistic things, and this is going to be our base of operations from which we will spread our tendrils out into the rest of the island and accomplish all sorts of really cool stuff. So how are we going to go about doing that? Well, first things first, we're going to want a landing on this little island here. We can just quick build this. So I like starting with the starting money so high so that we can rapidly get to a position that we're happy with. With this island specifically, I want to create sort of like some little farming areas here and here. And we'll connect these to the mainland, to our main little island here, via some bridges. And so we're gonna have bridges spreading across these two waterways, and that'll be all fine and dandy. But the major thing is on this little island here, we start out with some gold mines, some gold deposits, and these are going to be really quite useful for getting us off the ground right off the bat. And we're going to, create as much gold as we can, mine out as much of this gold as we can, sell it to make it through the first era at least. And then once we make it to the next era, we'll start doing really interesting things. Namely, we'll get right into building up a steel mill, and we can even get right into building up some weapons factories, and that'll be great. Those make a lot of money, and we can use them to kickstart our endeavors and whatnot. So it'll be really interesting. So first things first, I want to set up a nice little road system. I went on to ponder out loud how I wanted to build up a road network. To summarize things, I really like to keep the main metro area all in one direction. Splitting things up with odd angles will waste a lot of space, and my favorite all-time design is to surround a 4x6 square with roads and to repeat this as far as we can. This is by far the best design in my opinion, but today I wanted to check in on a 4x4 square surrounded by roads. I found this design to work well, not as good as a 4x6, but it had its advantages. 3, 4, 5... Spread this on down to here, there. Okay, it's looking pretty good so far. Going into the mines, and bam, just like that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oops. How are we looking? We can do another one like this. 3, 4, 5. Just like that. Cool. And so that is all of our initial mines for the gold mine setup. And I think we'll go ahead and start with some crops here on this island, just to start us out, because it would be kind of annoying to have to send a million different people all over the island. I'd rather keep things like as compact as possible. Let's go ahead and grab the palace. First off, we can relocate you to, I wonder how it's going to, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Ooh, you know what? It can go right in the center of this, which I think is kind of cool. So we're spending a lot of money on something kind of silly, but like I said, getting things set up right off the bat exactly how I want, just so that we're not going to have to relocate a billion different things as time goes on, is a pretty good thing. So that's all looking really good. I'm liking it. I've never really done this setup. Things are looking good. The reason we need the landing, by the way, is because, you can't access an island that doesn't have a dock of some sort, or like road access leading to it with a bridge. Going with a landing is like the cheapest, quickest option for us, and we can start relocating all of our buildings over here. Yeah, the only downside is the fact that a lot of our buildings don't quite tile this super neatly, but we can deal with that as time goes on. That will be fine. We'll wait on the dock. Our bunkhouses are going to be able to neatly tile these, so they'll be very easy to just slap a bunch of them on in. And I actually made that one backwards, not quite how I wanted it to be.
We're not going to have a well-off population at the beginning. We might have some well-off people as time goes on, but for now we're going to go ahead and demolish up all of these little nice houses. And I'm going to go ahead and probably want to relocate our corn, which, you know, there's plenty of space out here for it, so can look into something like that. The only downside to this is the fact that it's kind of close to our mines, which isn't great because pollution is going to decrease soil quality. So ideally we kind of make it a bit further away, but I think it'll be all right for all intents and purposes. So that's looking pretty good to me. Let's go ahead and set up a grocery right off the bat as well. Can do something like that, I suppose. And we can also relocate our little chapel here. Maybe we do the chapel here. Now taverns are totally adequate, but for our purposes we're going to instead do custom parks all over the place. So this here is a perfect little custom park for us. We can also set up some planter boxes to take up just a bit of space. We can put a water basin 2x2 in the center, and we can do some 1x1s, turn off random variation, and put these in the corners. Now this is going to give us right off the bat service quality of 54. It's going to have room for 8 people, and so service quality limit goes up with the more tiles that a custom park uses, right? The larger the park, the higher the service quality limit. The larger the park, also the higher the amount of visitor slots. And so service quality limit is at 60, but as you can see, our current service quality is only 54. To increase the actual service quality, you want to use up like the tiles within this. So that's why we put down the little, you know, planter boxes and whatnot. So it was at probably like 30, and then with, you know, this little design here, we've increased it to 54, and we can even put some buildings in to increase it further, which I don't think is a bad idea. We could do some wayside shrines. Could also do some magazine stands. I mean, it is some additional like job slots as well. Yeah, let's go ahead and do at least a couple of them. If you don't have the DLC, I wouldn't really worry about these. You could literally fill them in with pretty much anything else that'll fit, just parks or whatever, like the park squares and whatnot. But because we have the DLC, I'm gonna go ahead and do these. They'll give us a nice little bonus to the population as time goes on. And so with just those, look at that, service quality is up to 60, so that's better than our taverns at the start of the game. And all we gotta do is set up more of these parks around, and we'll be in a really, really good position. So everything is moved over, everything's looking pretty good. Now is the part where we're going to talk about setting up a bunch of different budgets. So budgets are going to be very, very important. So in Tropico 6, if we come and click on our, well, realistically the best way to get to this, the main way would be to go to your almanac, and then we want to go over to people and then come down to wealth. Now this is the wealth breakdown of our entire population. As we can see, we have broke Tropicans. The only way you can make it here is if you don't have a job, neither you nor your spouse, so that'll make people broke. These people, none of them have jobs, right? Broke Tropicans are the ones that are more likely to become criminals. If they become a criminal, they make a well-off wage. If you make at least $1 a month, which is, you know, what this here, the wage is, that's how much they make a month. That's how much we're paying everyone a month, right? So these 4 people are getting paid $15 a month each, and that adds up to around $60 a month. Like, that factors into our budget, right? So $15 a month is going towards the upkeep of the palace. So it's 15 for each of these guys, and then 15 for the palace itself, adding all the way up to $75 a month. And that's what's coming out of our treasury every single month. So not great, not amazing. And if we lower this budget, we can see it's going to decrease their wages down to $8 a month. And so it goes from $75 a month for the whole palace down to only $40 a month, which is great for us. More money saved, right? And so we're going to decrease the budgets down to the minimum. And this is great because it means that like all of our buildings, like 50 down to 29, right? What is this one? 74 down to 34. Everything's just going to be cheaper, and it's going to allow us to save a lot of money. As for housing's a little bit different. The amount of money that a housing building will make is always going to be stagnant, right? So this building, a full bunkhouse, is always going to make $30 a month, right? And so by increasing the budget to the max, we're spending $30 a month and we're making $30 a month. So this would become a net, like, neutral building here, right? We're not making any money, we're not losing any money, and it's going to, changing the budget doesn't change the income, it just changes the housing quality, right? So if we lower it down to the lowest setting, we have the lowest amount of housing quality, but our budget is also going to go down, which means that ultimately we're going to net money. So we're only spending $6 a month and we'll be making $30 a month. And so that's pretty good for us. And in the first era, your support technically does not matter. Of course, it's nice to have it like a little higher up, but for the first era, I always recommend going with the lowest budget setting for all of your housing, just because, you know, the housing quality doesn't matter. And it just means that you're going to be generating at least something from all of your different bunkhouses, and that's always great. Let's go ahead and actually set up another landing here. Go ahead and quick build it, so that way we can move our dock on over. Lowest budget for that as well. Could fit it here, but I kind of don't really like that, but I don't really see another option. That seems okay for us. Cool. We are looking good. Pretty much off to the races. Every single thing is getting moved over. Let's go ahead and move these bunkhouses over as well. Pause the game on up, and we can relocate some additional bunk housing on over. And I think we'll go ahead and start taking up a bit of this side over here now. Bit of this, bit of that. Looking good. As for our plantations, we can go with the lowest settings. That's okay. Turn off allow local consumption, and we'll get into exactly why shortly. But let's talk about plantations. Let's set up some more. Ooh, look at that. Banana plantations are looking good here. It's not really going to be worth for us to choose anything that has like below maybe a 90% efficiency, because we're going with the lowest budgets for everything. Pineapples would be good, but we want our plantations to all be sort of bunched up. And we want different crop types. So let's go ahead. We're gonna say screw it. We're gonna do the 60% efficiency building here. Now, the major thing is that we have a lot of unemployed people, so we need a lot of new jobs, which is what we're setting up here. Now, as for our early game plantations are gonna be huge, you know. We have these mines, but we want to produce different food types, and the reason is that we actually are setting up a grocery, and I'll just quick build this for the sake of the example here. Now, service quality is 45, which is really low, right? Like, this is what people's food happiness is going to be based on, the food happiness. And for us, we're going to want to get the food happiness up as high as possible, because going with low budgets, a lot of things are going to be kind of low. Job qualities are going to be low. Housing quality is probably going to be low for a long time. Everything's just going to be relatively quite low. So what we want to do is, you know, whatever we can have a high, you know, happiness for the entire island, we want to make sure that we fully lean into that. With groceries, we want this service quality to be as high as possible, and we want to make sure that we always have enough groceries to feed everyone. So how do we increase the service quality of our groceries? Increasing the budget, easy peasy. That gives us, you know, plus, what is that, 12 points, which is great. If you look at edicts, we can actually do food for the people, which is actually a communistic thing. It's going to increase communist standing by 5. Citizens are going to consume 2 units of food when eating, increases the general food quality by 10. It also makes the capitalist kind of upset, but that's okay. So food for the people is great, and that's going to increase it up to 67. And so we want to make sure that people aren't eating food from anywhere else. We want them to only be eating the food from our plantations, or sorry, from our groceries. So that's why we're turning off allow local consumption. And we're also going to want to change our plantations to multicultural. And this is going to, the major thing is it's going to stop these buildings from degrading the soil. Soil quality will no longer go down when they're on this work mode. It's going to decrease the efficiency by 40%, which, as you can see, it's down to 32%, which is not great. But the more plantations we have within this blue circle that are on the same work mode and producing a different crop, it's going to increase the efficiency back by 10 points, right? Which is great. So, you know, we lose 40, so we're at 72% efficiency down to 32% efficiency, and then with each of these it's going to increase it back by another 10, so that's plus 20, so we're sitting at 52% efficiency, which, you know, might sound terrible, but the thing is that we're not spending any money on this island. This island's like incredibly cheap, so this is totally fine for us. And then of course, as time goes on, we're going to set up bigger and better plantations elsewhere, so this will just get us by for now. But back to the grocery. As you can see, there's 11 different food variety, so there's a bunch of different food types. Let's see here. We have coconuts, so that's 1. Fisherman's wharfs can give us fish and shellfish, that's 2, so that brings us up to 3. And then I believe there's 3 different food types that you can get from plantations, so that brings us up to 6. Ranches can give us milk and meat, so 7, 8. And then we have 3 others, which are actually going to be produced in our industries. We have canneries, which give us canned goods, creameries, which give us cheese, and then we also have the juicery, which gives us juice, and that's the 11th different food type. So there's all these different food types that are produced also in industry buildings. Canneries can also be set to a work mode that'll increase the groceries service quality even further. So we want to have all the different food varieties, or at least as many as we can possibly manage. And then we also want to set as many canneries as necessary to that additional work mode. And pretty much by stacking as many little modifiers as we can relatively easily get a service quality of 100. And if we have all of our groceries at 100, and then we have the entire population able to access a grocery, right? There's only so many slots here, but if we have enough groceries all over the place that everyone can, you know, have room inside of a grocery, then we'll be okay. We can have the entire population technically at 100 food happiness, which is great, of course, but that's a ways off. And then on top of that, if we want to increase the bee income, which at 4, this building, almost no matter what, I don't think I've ever seen it like actually generate money whenever it's only got 4 bee income. Later on, we can go to consumer goods, and consumer goods can be stocked into your groceries. DLC consumer goods, it's like fireworks, toys, and books. Those are all DLCs. Those ones are going to actually they're not going to increase the fee, right? So if we look at our groceries, the fee is 4, and I'm not sure exactly what the number is. I think it goes up by $4 per different consumer good that's stocked in, but at least at 8, if this building's consistently full, if you have 1 consumer good stocked in, then this building will start to generate money, which is great. So it's a really good idea to actually set up a rum distillery and start selling it inside of our groceries so that this building can actually generate us some money, which is great. That'll be really, really cool. We don't have sugar set up quite yet, so that might be one of our first little forays into, you know, a distant island, is set up just one little rum distillery area and set it up so that we can use a Teamster's port to pull the goods on over. That would probably be a pretty good idea. But that is what we're going to sort of plan with all of our groceries, and kind of how we want to set up all of our different food types. Getting rum early on is a pretty good idea. And with the dock right here, all we need to do is set up one little Teamster's port just across the water, and this will allow us to quickly transfer goods on over, which will be great. So I'm looking at everything. I'm really liking the way that everything's looking. And yeah, I think that'll be kind of one of our first main objectives, is to set up a rum distillery. It's going to be quite important. So I have a pretty good idea for that. But as with all things, we're going to need a bit of time. But I think what I'll do is set up the plantations in the very least. Does this have good soil quality for sugar? Not really. There is some over here, but that's kind of far out of the way. I think we're going to just have to bite the bullet here and set it up regardless. So let's go ahead and get the Teamster's port poised. There's a good spot. With that, we can spread a road down to here. And what we can do is we can set up some plantations. Cool, that's looking really good to me. So the major thing about all of this is if we put a manure spreader right here, what we set up is a bunch of different cattle ranches to produce meat, hides, and mainly manure. The manure is going to go into the manure spreader, and these plantations are not going to be set onto the multicultural work mode, so they will degrade the soil. That's why we have the manure spreader, which is why we have all these cattle ranches. The cattle ranches also produce plenty of goods for us, and the meat is going to be great. You know, population's going to love the meat. But the major thing also, or another major thing, is the fact that we're producing plenty of hides with these buildings, and that's just another industry for us to set up. Now, I talk about it kind of a lot, or I've talked about it a lot in the past. If we come to the goods and prices and then sort by price, which, you know, this is a really good way to figure out like what's selling for the most. And if we scroll all the way down to the bottom, we can see that at the beginning of the game, I always know this, hides is only $750, which is, you know, we're selling 1,000 hides and we're not even making $1,000. But if we scroll up, we can see that leather is selling for like 5 times, 10 times as much, almost 10 times as much. So by processing that leather or the hides into leather, that's a pretty good like comeuppance, you know. So the meat's great for our population, the hides are great for turning into leather and generating a bunch of money, the sugar's great for generating rum, which will allow our groceries to generate money as well as sell that for a pretty decent price, and then the manure spreader's here to keep everything good. And we want to make sure to set the cattle ranches to the correct work mode so that they don't degenerate the soil quality as well. And so this entire little system should be a-okay as time goes on. We're probably going to need like a Teamster's office or two over here, but that is for later me to worry about. The major thing is that we can just pause all of this. I just wanted it in the very least set up so that I can unpause it as time goes on. And let's go ahead and pause on up our gold mines. Getting all this planning done is great. Just so I don't really have to worry about it as time goes on. You know, we've already spent the money on it. These are all the buildings that we're going to want right off the bat anyways. So that's all looking really, really good to me. We could even drop the money on a new rum distillery, which I don't really see why we wouldn't. And then of course we can always demolish these buildings in the future if we kind of like need the cash, but we probably won't. We could even go so far as to set up a tannery, which I think sort of way over here on the edge is probably going to be our best bet. Ooh, look at that. That's crazy. We got another square there, even right up against the water. Cool to see. Cool, cool, cool. I'm really liking the way that's all looking. And I guess now it's just kind of time to check around, see if there's anything else. Oh, yes. Newspapers. Newspapers are always going to be huge. You're always going to want plenty of newspapers dotted around your island. So I like to set them up in a way that sort of covers everything. And I like to set up two close to each other. I don't like buildings to be right next to each other that are exactly the same, but in the very least, I think we'll set something up like this. And we'll try and prioritize all of our housing out in this direction at the beginning. I think one here is going to look, you know, different enough. We can go ahead and quick build these newspapers. Now, newspapers are going to be fairly important, and we'll talk about that in just a second. Now, real quick, let's talk a bit about both factions, newspaper, which is going to be our propaganda, and moving on to the next era. Moving out of the first era, really, there's just one thing you need to worry about, and that's your revolutionaries. You want at least 60% of the population to be supporting the revolutionary faction, and then you want their happiness to be at least 60%, above 60 here. How do we accomplish this? How do we get more people to support this faction, and how do we make them happier? Making them happier is really quite easy. You just need to fulfill their demands as they pop up, and also certain buildings are going to make them happy as well. I'm pretty sure like newspapers make them happy, mines probably make them happy. I reckon even like bunkhouses being built up will make them happy. A distillery definitely probably would. So that's just how to make them happy. Demands plus buildings, very, very easy to get it above 60. But another major thing is how do we get more people to support it? First off, easy right off the bat is newspapers. Newspapers will influence people towards different factions. That's propaganda, and as time goes on you're going to have more factions, and you have different propaganda buildings, the radio station, the TV station, even movie theaters, your high schools. I don't think colleges, I think it's just high schools. And there's a few other things that you can sort of tinker around with to change people's political views. And so by using the newspapers, we can take people that support the royalist faction and push them towards the revolutionary faction. That's why we've set it up so that these blue circles encompass all of our housing, because the newspapers affect people who live within these areas of effect. And that's kind of why I like to have newspapers sort of set up near each other, because as you can see, this huge area over here isn't being affected by either of these newspapers, and that was kind of planned, or it was completely planned, because in the future I'll set two more over here, and that will allow the entire island, this entire island, to be affected by newspapers, and then we can set, you know, each little pair to two specific factions. Later on in the next era, we're gonna have access to 4 factions. Communism will be right here, and militarism, the militarist faction, will be right here. And so we'll have one of these newspapers set to the communist faction, which is Red Star. The other newspaper will set to the militarist faction, which is Gunny. And so then we'll have another pair of those exact same work modes over here, and that will allow the entire island to be pushed towards communism and militarism. And then all we got to do is make those two factions happy, and we'll be garnishing, I don't know if that's the right word, but we'll be gaining a lot of support, which is great. So early on, you know, you have access to, I think I quick built these already, yes. early on, you're going to have access to the independent. This is what is going to push people towards the revolutionary faction. So just by switching it over, bam, all these people are being affected, and they'll be being pushed towards the independent faction, towards the revolutionary faction. But we also have another newspaper, and this one we'll put on penny saver so that it generates a little bit of money as time goes on, which is great. And of course, we're going with the lowest settings, and if you go with the highest settings, then it's going to have a much higher chance of propaganda successes, which is great. But for us, we want to keep everything nice and cheap, so we'll go ahead and do that. A quick note, once you make it to later buildings, radio stations will affect workers, and it has a much larger radius. So instead of, like, as you can see, the housing is highlighted when we click on a newspaper, a radio station, it'll highlight all workstation or all workplaces. And then a TV station works just like the newspaper, it'll highlight housing, but only electrified housing. So we need to electrify everything if we want the newspaper to affect people living in their homes, right? So that is pretty much propaganda. And oh yeah, and whenever you complete revolutionary demands, you always want to take the 10 revolutionary immigrants, right? And you can just imagine 25 to 18, or sorry, 25 to 18, you can imagine that going up by 10, 35 to 18, and then another 10 would be 45 to 18, and that's just by completing revolutionary demands. That's not even counting in, our newspapers working their propaganda. And so that's how to quickly move to the next era, is complete demands, always take the revolutionary immigrants, and what'll help out is newspapers, because what I've noticed is that the hardest thing is always to have 60% or greater of the population supporting the faction or the revolutionaries. So it's definitely a good idea to always take the revolutionary immigrants, and having a newspaper on the independent work mode is always going to help out as well. And then we'll create some fishermen's wharfs to very simply, fishermen's wharfs will have them serve as sort of like the, not backbone of the economy, but they're definitely going to be the lowest quality jobs, so that they'll be like the net, right? Everyone will have a job, they'll be working everywhere else where, they're happy enough. We'll have like some spare jobs, like the job that no one wants to do, a job that isn't super important, but it definitely helps out, and that's going to be the fishermen's wharfs. They're going to have the lowest job happiness with the lowest settings, and it'll be the building least populated pretty much at all times, but in the very least we'll have some spare jobs for people who freshly immigrate to the island, and we'll try and have them as empty as possible, just having people work in different buildings as time goes on. Coconut harvesters, we could set some of these up as well. Ooh, look at this little spot over here. That's great. This will serve pretty much as like the exact same thing. Coconut harvesters will give a very low wage, therefore a very low job happiness. And of course, this is another food type. This is 2 more food types, which are always going to help out. The newspapers require a high school education, so we have 2 of them, so that's 8 high school educated people. There's 2 more high school educated jobs here in the chapel, so that means that we need a total of 10 at least. So let's look at education. We only have 2 high school educated people, so go ahead and hire in people for our newspapers just right off the bat. That's fine. Spend a bit of money, but it'll be okay. The other 2 high school educated people, they'll probably find their way into working in the chapel, hopefully. Another major thing, I believe that the trading outpost is a non-DLC thing. It's just something that was added into the game, and that's pretty important. So let's go ahead and set up a trading outpost, and I'll get into exactly what it does, given a little bit of time, but let's go ahead and set one down and pause that on up. We can't even pause it. Let's just set it to low priority. It'll be like the last thing we always focus on, which is fine. But you can input goods, specific goods. You can choose the amount starting at 1,000 going up to 10,000, and once these goods are input into your trading post, you can also choose the superpower to which it goes to. And once that's all set up, once you have all the goods in, then you can send those goods out, and you'll get a really good trade deal. You can get like plus 350%, which is like plus $1.5 million on an entire trade deal. And so this is going to be a really important building. We probably won't aim for like the highest, the 10,000 export right off the bat. We'll probably aim for just lower things early on, just so that we can guarantee get some good trade deals going out. But yeah, trading outposts, really good. Something fairly important early on is urban development. This will decrease the building cost of all of your housing, and it says it has a 5-year cooldown, but I never really noticed that. But the major thing is now we can actually set up some additional bunk housing for relatively cheap. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's set up just a couple more. Cool beans. Let's go ahead and quick build these then, the 2 fishermen's wharfs. You want to get the revolutionary demands done as quick as possible. So let's go ahead and unpause them. Turn off allow local consumption. We'd rather these goods get pushed into our grocery where they can buy them instead. Fishing dredges are good because that's going to allow us to actually produce shellfish. So for every 4 fish that people produce, they'll generate 1 shellfish, which is good. And we'll leave this on the medium budget for now. Later on, we'll lower the budget, but for now, we'll go ahead and leave it on the medium budget so that we can guarantee get people into these buildings quickly. As we can see, all of this housing over here isn't within our newspaper ranges. So yeah, let's go ahead and cancel those all on up. And let's make sure that we are building our new bunk housing within the ranges of our newspaper. So let's go ahead and set these up over here. Good thing that I noticed.
Now that we had the entire beginning of the island planned out, we simply sit back and let things grow. We unpaused the mines as the population grew and needed more jobs. The grocery started stocking up on more food, which increased the food quality for the entire population. With more revolutionary immigrants moving onto the island, we quickly made it to the next era.
My heart swells with joy as I greet my fearless leader for the first time.
Yeah, so a big thing with Tropico 6 is you just don't want to mess up, right? The best way to not mess up a lot of things is to just be consistent. So what's going to be the most consistent thing for us? It's going to be to build up a strong core for us, right? Just to have our economy set up in such a way that no matter what, we're going to be in the positive, right? Before trade deals, before anything else that's going to make us money, our economy is going to be sturdy. We are going to have to relocate our dock because I want to build a bridge straight across over here. Should be able to relocate you now. And over here, there's going to be a bridge as well. So I don't really want to relocate it to that side. And I think we're going to have to settle for right there is actually great. So just send a road on down to there. The fishermen's wharfs might have to get relocated or destroyed as well. I know that I'm going to want a bridge spanning this right here. Ooh. Ah. Road curves too sharply. That's ridiculous. I don't want that. That's ridiculous too. It's such a shame it won't connect to this. But we did get the bridge that we wanted. Oh, whoa. No way that's crazy. You can build a bridge across this? No way. I hate it. I just hate it. I do. Oh, what about this? No way. What a bummer, man. What if we do something like that? Okay, this will work then. We'll just build a road coming from there then. That's okay. So that kind of leaves all this beachfront out here for fishermen's wharfs, which I'm okay with. As far as we can this way. Can build a nice little road to that. Cool beans. And then we'll go ahead and relocate the other fishermen's wharf probably over here as well. We can go ahead and get at least 1 embassy up and rolling. Let's go ahead and do it. I think right here is kind of a cool little spot. Now real quick, I will talk about your Liberty. As you can see, this is a Liberty overlay, and if you look closely enough, if the contrast will show up on a YouTube video, you can see, let's find like a wide open area. Yeah, even right here in the water, you can see that there's like a circle around the commando garrison. The commando garrison will decrease the nearby Liberty, and so if anyone has a Liberty below 50, which is the average, like if we just go to our overlays, we can come and click on the Liberty wherever it is, and we can see that it's just averaging 50, right? If anyone's in an area below 50, and I believe if they're like upset with El Presidente, there's a chance they'll become a rebel, which isn't great. You know, you don't want rebellion. So to counter low Liberty, you build newspapers. Newspapers are great. And then on top of that, you don't want to build buildings that decrease Liberty near your population. So for us, we're going to put it technically just like as far as we can out of the way on over here, and that's totally fine.
As our infrastructure plans came together, I shifted focus to the trading post. It was still a relatively new building to me at the time, but it would soon prove to be a critical cornerstone for our ultimate plans down the road, and getting used to using it now would be a good idea.
And then also there is the trading post, which we briefly talked about just a second ago, but let's talk a little bit more about it. If we select resource, well, first off, your superpower, you want to choose a superpower you're going to be happy with, but when you're selecting your resource, the amount is going to change the deviation, because once we stock this thing full of goods, the 2500 gold that we're going with here, and once we hit send, they're going to give us a really good deal, and how good depends on how many resources we're sending them. Now I don't want to, you know, go too crazy with it and go 10,000, but 10,000, I've seen those go over 300% like plus deviation, and that's the ones where I've seen like plus 1 million here, you know, instead of 27,000. But we're just gonna do a little bit of testing. Let's start out with just 2,500 gold. We'll go ahead and send that on out and see how well that does. So we're gonna combine 3 things right now to get as good a deal with our gold as possible. We're going to send 2,500 gold to the superpower that we're going to be friends with. Once the embassy's set up, then we'll try and make them, you know, as happy as possible. And then on top of that, let's go ahead and get a customs office rolling as well. I'm gonna go ahead and throw that, I suppose right here is okay. Right here, no, I don't like that. I mean, anywhere is fine. Literally anywhere is fine. That's pretty much trade talk. So we want to send 2,500 gold to the axes. We want to have a customs office to increase, you know, our deviations even more. And then we want the embassy to make them as happy as possible. We're doing cheap or well, low quantity import deals from them to make them super duper happy with us as quick as possible. And maybe we can sign like something kind of simple, something benign, oil, pearls, planks, tobacco. We're not producing any of that, so we won't worry about it for now.
By now, it might be evident what I was planning on accomplishing with this island. I wanted to set up as many weapons factories as the island would allow me to produce, and once we made it to the modern times era, I would have access to a total of 5 superpowers. This would give me a total of 5 potential trade deals that I could set up to get really good deals on our weapons until we ran out of materials for the weapons. But back to where we currently are in the playthrough, I next finished setting up the sugar plantations and rum distillery, which would allow us to generate at least some money from our groceries and export the rest. While I was doing that, I enacted the agricultural subsidies edict, which pairs well with the communist believing island and having all of your agricultural buildings on the lowest budgets. As the island continued to grow, we continued to build new housing while we let the gold stockpile into our trading post.
All the gold's ready. It's January. I mean, we literally could do it right now. Let's increase the budget to the maximum. The axis is above 90, which I think is sort of the cap for what's going to change their deviations as much as possible, is once you hit above 90, I'm pretty sure. But yeah, we're looking all right. Let's do a gold deal. Let's see what they give us. 200%? No way. That's 3 times as much. Look at that. 1,000 units of gold is going to go for $27,000. That's insane. We're going to make $300,000 more off of that.
Needless to say, the trading post is a great addition to Tropico 6. It allows you to plan your economy around a particular good without running the risk of never getting a good export deal. With this injection of money, we would be able to expand as vigorously as I could possibly manage. I didn't want to overdo things though, and we would have to wait a whole decade in the World Wars era anyways. This gave me ample time to focus on the smaller things. I went back and fine-tuned the larger park buildings first, making sure their layouts and visitor slots were being used as efficiently as possible. With that, I built out a new tavern district, surrounding it with smaller decorative parks to boost the area's beauty, giving the taverns a nice efficiency bonus in the process. I also diligently worked on increasing the overall happiness of the island and managed to get it above 50, which was a goal of mine for this era. I was really starting to like the look of the island, and I began to wonder if it would be an overall good idea to allow the entire population to have access to vehicles.
So there's a couple of thoughts that I'm having right about now, which are, you know, we click on a building and we can see there's like this train of people walking on over, right? That's cool. That's totally fine, but you can imagine if there was a parking deck here, and then there was a parking deck next to the park, parking deck over here, parking decks just all over the place, and one bunkhouse can be replaced with one parking deck, right? And then people will just be able to just hop in cars everywhere all the time. So that leads me to another thought, which is we're going to want to put them kind of in the peripheries if we can. If we put them all like on the main road, then everyone's going to get into cars on the main road, drive down the main road. Main roads are going to be super clogged up. So if we kind of spread it out into like corners and stuff, it'll just make more of the roads be used, I think, which is, you know, a pretty important idea. Like as of right now, this entire back road right here, well, I guess besides the grocery, but like this little corner isn't being used at all. We'll probably never see anyone drive on this ever. So technically we don't even need this road. It's really just for like my own personal planning. But to actually add some functionality to it, we could demolish this bunkhouse and have a parking deck face towards this road, and people will drive left and right, and we'll just see a lot more cars on the road, which I think will be
Really quite nice. One more trade shipment and I think we'll go ahead and begin the setup for our first little bit of industrialization, which will be really, really nice to see. And yeah, I think step one is going to be to move all the plantations over here. So that'll be the first thing. So with our next set of new immigrants, we'll set them up to farm across the water. Ooh, we could even come over here and set something up. What if we make like a little industrial island? I think that'd be really cool. Either way, I think it'd be a cool idea to set up a bunch of industry, all of our electronics and stuff over there. As the island's final layout started to take shape in my mind, I decided to move all of our food plantations off the main island to free up some space. With our income skyrocketing, I also increased the library's budget to speed up research. That let us quickly unlock the Free Wheels Edict and get people moving on the roads, while the commando garrison quietly kept raids running in the background, pushing us closer to the next era. I moved some buildings around to make room for something that I wanted to fully test out for a long time. I wanted to see how effective roundabouts would be for an island with tons of cars on the roads. With all that sorted out, I next checked up on the steel trade. And as you can see, a customer of the clinic is already going to drive to this parking deck, so that's great. That's really, really what we like to see. Bam, pulls into the parking deck. You can see the doctor got in a car, and now they're walking across the street. This is cool already. So this is a good time for us to check out how well roundabouts are going to work. We're going to see how well this new little grid system that I've come up with is going to work, and hopefully, as time goes on, the efficiency of such an island. So we're going to start producing some iron and coal, and before we really start to even sell a lot of it, I would really like to make sure that we're turning it into steel in the very least, right? I reckon that steel is going to be worth more than iron and coal, and a quick way to tell is let us check in on goods and prices. So the big thing is steel worth more than iron and coal? It's literally worth more than both of these. So I believe the production rate is 1 iron turns into 1 steel, 1 coal turns into 1 steel. And if that's the case, then literally just by turning our iron and our coal into steel, we're going to be doubling our money off of that entire process. And the only drawback is going to be paying the steel mill workers, of course, but ultimately I think it's going to be a pretty major boon for our entire economy. Already we're seeing plenty of roundabouts, and you know, if any intersection gets particularly clogged up, we're going to do our best, do what we can to simply create some new roundabouts. I don't think it'll be much of a problem, but in case it is, we already know what the plan's going to be. And it would be really great if we could fit the dock in literally anywhere else, but I don't really see that happening. So I think what we might do is simply send it across the water here. I think that might be the best bet. Ooh, look at this spot. Risky? It works. Look at that. That's cool. That is quite cool indeed, man. After picking the industrial zone, it was finally time to get the smokestacks running. I moved all of our current industry buildings over and set our construction workers to build up a new steel mill and coal power plant. Since all these new jobs meant more housing back on the main island, I made sure newspaper coverage was already in place before building it out. After getting weapon production online, I mostly let things run uninterrupted. Turning on Employee of the Month let miners and factory workers work double shifts, and combined with free wheels, we were now poised to produce weapons rapidly. In no time we were ready for our first trading post deal. If we look at this church, one church on this setting, let's see how much it's costing us a month. 73. Let's see how much a chapel's costing. 34. I would think that churches like this are strictly more efficient, money-wise. Yeah, 100%. Because we're spending 34 a month. If we double that, we get pretty close to this amount. But this one literally fits 3 times as many people and slightly higher service quality. And I think people are going to get in and out faster. So that's just insanely better. All around, just way, way better. Dang, look how many cars there are rolling around. It's so cool to see. Workforce. Yeah, it's the high school buildings that are having an issue right now. Yeah, we're going to have to do something about that very, very soon. 48,000. I might just hire in a bunch of high school educated workers. Dang, look at our little island, man. So cool. 2,500. It's November. I think we wait until the beginning of the next year. Maybe? Nah. Let's do it now. Let's send it off to the Axes. 306%. Okay, guys. Are you ready? This is what we're looking at with only 350 weapons, right? If we sold 2,000 weapons, 100,000 extra dollars. Let's see what happens if we sell 3 times that. 320,000 off 7,000 weapons is insane, man. That's crazy. With our deal locked in, I realized that we were going to start making a ton of money as we continued building up more and more weapons factories. However, I was so focused on planning and consistency that I hadn't realized that we had already spent an entire decade in the World Wars era. Truthfully, I would have preferred to stay longer, but I had no choice but to move on. 57, 55, how's the nearby beauty looking now? Yeah, it's not doing too great over here, so let's go ahead and relocate this Teamster's office to here. We're spending like a lot of this money, but it'll be worth it in the long run. New custom park. Buildings, just straight up we can do a 2x3 here. Cool, it's gotta be the pollution. Yeah, the pollution in this entire area. Let's go ahead and honestly, like, I didn't really plan on doing this until literally right now, but let's go ahead and set up. Oh, we don't even have access to the garbage dump, darn. It's literally this gold mine here producing pollution. That's kind of the issue, so we're gonna have to get rid of that as soon as possible. But yeah, things are looking pretty good. Now that we have this warehouse, let's consider what we want here. I want to do our iron, our coal.
9. Glorious
Whoa!
Axis cannot have lost. There is clearly some mistake. The war's not over, Presidente. I would kiss you if it was not treason to do so.
Finally, the war is behind us. What's next? Certainly not a different kind of war.
Darn it, man. I was really hoping that it would let us hang out in that era for as long as possible, but it automatically kicked us into the next one. That's such a shame, man. It's fine, but, you know, not great. Energy efficient. Economy first. Increases pollution of industrial buildings by 50%. If we keep all of the industrial buildings away from the main island, though, I think it'd be pretty good. Yeah, and I think that's what we're going to do. Yeah, economy first. As for the separation powers, we can just do true separation. I think that's okay. Cool. Yeah, it's a bit of a shame. Weapons to Eastern Bloc? Does this mean that? No, see, we straight up lost that trade deal. You know what? I think I want to quickly move through this era just because that right there, that's what I don't want to happen, is to get comfortable in this era and then, you know, we end up not quite having like the amount of time and whatnot. Ooh, you know what? We can move through this era so fast too. Literally all we gotta do is set up, oh, here, a nuclear program. Let's purchase this and all we gotta do is build it. So let's go ahead and, oh, we don't have the money for it quite yet, but we will. Let's go to an embassy. Let's invite Eastern Bloc. It doesn't really matter which one we choose. And then we can do trade. And we'll say that we're going to sell to them our rum. Say we'll sell them a bunch of rum. Oh, we should change this to stimulate exports, trade, rum, a little bit of this, a little bit of that. We'll say that we'll import literally whatever. We'll say we'll import 1,800 units of hide. Maybe that's enough. Yeah, we can ask for financial aid now. Change this back down to the lowest setting. And with that, we can build a nuclear program. Great. That works out rather quite well. Coconut harvester, let's relocate you to somewhere that we can have coconuts. We don't want the coconut harvesters to become rebels. Let's choose like here. Cool. But now that we were in the Cold War era, I wanted to rapidly move through this era to get access to the late game buildings. I'd formulated a plan for success. As long as I influenced the islanders towards communism and kept the communists happy, as well as keep the overall happiness of the island above 80, the move would be golden for the rest of the playthrough. With the nuclear program in place, we moved on to the final stage. After quickly gathering the resources for bomb production, we were ready for the modern times era. I created a new embassy for all 5 superpowers and locked in a deal with the USA to kick things into high gear while we finished the island. I started constructing the DLC housing option, the capsule home clusters. Honestly, I wish that they would have been gray and the capsule hotels would have been multicolored, but I fully committed to them regardless. The housing quality isn't too high with these buildings, so I'd have to be creative in finding ways to increase it. I started with some fast food joints on the work mode free delivery. After completely covering the island with these buildings, I did the same with fire stations on the cat and tree work mode, and even went so far as to dot the island with some subway stations and even a few apparel workshops. I completely reworked our food and crop system. I liked the DLC buildings and I could see some powerful combinations, but I still wasn't completely used to it. I would probably need to make an island focused on these buildings to understand all the nuances. Still, we managed to modernize our entire crop system. I created a financial zone filled in with some offices and a bank to help out with our constantly draining treasury. The highlight of the economic zone was going to be a financial institute. This building would let us affect the prices of various goods on a much more permanent and effective scale. Only after building this and waiting to gather the necessary research points did I realize that the weapons were already scheduled to go on an upward trend on their own. Now I also realized that there was going to be a limit to how much minerals we would be able to produce, refine, and import. So I did some rough calculations and decided to create a total of 3 different industry zones, all focused primarily on weapons, but each zone would also produce some consumer goods and factory produced food to stock into our groceries. I could have modernized all of our mines, but I realized this would only be necessary for one mineral in particular, the nickel. This mineral was going to be what we were going to run out of first on the island, and modernizing these mines specifically would allow us to extend the life of the deposits. As the island took its final shape, we locked in a really good deal with each of the superpowers, and we were ready to make millions of dollars off of our weapon exports. Moving on to, hopefully this is going to be our last recording. Now, there is not a whole lot that we have left to do. Pretty much it's just going to be filling in our trade deals, kind of tinkering around with some numbers, filling in the rest of the housing that we're going to need. Like we're having electricity issues, how? Oh, these haven't filled in with uranium yet. But yeah, things are looking kind of insane. Like we have over 1,000 pop. Yeah, this is definitely by far, I wouldn't even say by far, this is one of the cooler like islands that I've ever made. Hopefully things continue to sort of pan out for us. Not totally sure that they are. We have so much money, it's unreal. And the big thing right now is we're waiting for the rest of the trading post deals to go through. So right now we're sending something to the Middle East. Let's go and find their embassy. Let's go ahead and praise them. As for the trade deals, we said we were going to do something to, yeah, we were importing rubber. Let's cancel that. Let's go ahead and say we're going to import something from the Middle East now. What does kind of suck is I feel like, import some cheese. Honestly, I feel like importing cheese forever is not a terrible idea. So let's go ahead and reduce import taxes. Let's grab this cheese forever. And then we can go back to stimulate exports. Okay. I forgot what I was talking about. I always get so distracted while I'm recording and talking. But, yeah, we pick up a trade deal to the Middle East to make them as happy as possible right before we do this trade. And hopefully things are going to look really, really well. Cover that up. Cover that up. That up. Cool, that's it. Literally concrete jungle type beat. Nickel mine. Modernize. Waste not protocol. Automated overseer. Max out the budget. Waste not protocol. Cool. So that's literally everything. Just to keep the nickel going kind of like as long as possible. Corn in, wool and milk will come out. Things are looking insane, man. Insane. We can just go through and cover up like the rest of this literally with... Yeah, I think we'll do it right now just to get it over and done with. Look at that, concrete all over the place. I'm going to do this to all little industrial zones. Yeah, I mean, we might as well. I think it looks cool. We're getting there, man. It's literally so close. All right, it's time to send off another one. Allowing to vote freely. 363, that's 1.77 million. And then we just literally choose USA, select resources, 10,000 units. And we lock in weapons. This will be the last year, and then I think it'll be time to just literally sit back, build up all the housing that we need, and just let the island play out. Sort of maybe go through, tinker with a couple numbers here and there. But we'll change the constitution to love it or leave it. Decreases the chance of unhappy citizens staying in Tropico by 50%. So as the population continues to go forward, if you don't love it, then they'll just start leaving it. And that's fine with me. Holy cow, they're almost done with that last one too. That's insane, man. Producing so many weapons so fast. Real quick though, I am curious about our workforce occupancy. What's kind of not getting people to... Yeah, it's the mines. Some mines people don't want to work in at all. Everything's looking really, really good. And that'll be that, man. Just let the population continue to go up for just a little bit longer. Ah, look at that. It's ready. 384%. That's crazy, man. That's it. Now we literally just wait. So, this is pretty much the very end of the entire playthrough now. We went and did a lot of... Let me adjust my microphone. Did a lot of really cool stuff. Lots and lots of interesting things happened along this playthrough, and I sort of did a mixture of ideas, which typically I never really do. I try and stick like one side or the other. And what I'm talking about is like the capsule home clusters are for a poor population, but we mixed in jobs that give like a well-off wage or rich wage. We built a bank in like a communist island, which I never really do. Pharmaceutical companies, just a lot of mixtures. I honestly never even really built cathedrals or even churches. Colleges, never. But I really tried to, well, I kind of let loose. I wanted to sort of let things sort of mix around a bit, and a lot of that was from whenever I watched, about a month ago, I watched a show called Chernobyl, and in it they had a nuclear, of course they had a nuclear power plant, and I thought that was an interesting idea. But if we check out like the lowest budget on a nuclear power plant, the lowest wage is only still $22, so they're getting paid a rich wage. So I thought that it was pretty interesting to make a communist island and to allow the budgets to be higher than normal. Usually I'm always on the absolute lowest budget with very few exceptions, but yeah, things ended turning out very well. All of the minerals on the entire island are being funneled into our industrial zones, and if we come over here and check this out, this is really cool. This deposit's only got 30,000 units left out of the original 60,000. So yeah, we're really like down to the wire on some of these deposits, which is really cool. The downtown zone looks really nice. We have pretty much all the amenities. The main happiness building is our movie theaters. We have a bunch of them dotted around. We have high schools, which are usually full. Police stations. All of our happinesses are looking pretty good. 84, we're right next to the Caribbean happiness, which I'm okay with. The capsule home clusters, I don't think we made any taller than any others, but as you build them up and they get taller and taller, the housing quality goes down, which I didn't really anticipate. So we really had to sort of do everything we could to get the housing quality up as high as possible. But what's really cool is the taller that you build these buildings, look, we're raking in 224, and I don't need, yeah, this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This is as tall as it gets without reach for the sky. And this is just on one person, one pod. If you did sharing is caring, then, you'd rake in literally twice as much money. So these are really good for the rents. Made some offices, sort of messed around with a couple of the work modes, kind of to get as much money coming in as possible. Refuse stations, of course. We had the fire stations, hospitals, newspapers. We had, I believe it is, yes, we had radio stations. We had everything that, a typical Tropico 6 island's really going to be needing. Yeah, there isn't a whole lot to talk about, but one thing that I think is kind of important to point out is the fact that we had 8 weapons factories in total. So we had 4 on our first industrial zone, 2, and then 2 on the other industrial zones. But yeah, as you can see, we're raking in money. Look at like every freighter leaving. That's $250,000 right there. And if we look at our weapons deal, this is the last one that we had going to Europe. And yeah, the trade deals were really cool. We were importing nickel, coal, iron, steel to keep everything going. And then in the video, I actually talk about it. Setting up this cheese deal was just good because I didn't need to make cheese at that point. But potentially, there's another 100 or like 70,000, 80,000 units of nickel coming in. So technically we could have kept playing, potentially forever if we just kept importing nickel from other places in the world. But I felt like it was a pretty good time. I mean, of course, you could just refresh all those deals and get, another couple million and keep it going and min-max your way to victory. I consider this a huge victory. We have, I believe, I've actually seen it once the deal ends and we have over 6 million. But yeah, I just thought it was really cool that we, mined one of the deposits dry. And even with the waste not protocol on both of the mines. Like, I just think it's really, really cool. But yeah, I guess there really isn't a whole lot more left to talk about. Just, it was a pretty fun journey, and I accomplished, truth be told, I don't really like the way that these buildings look, so it didn't really look as good as I would have wanted. But the island functioned pretty well. We got to see our roundabouts and just how effective they are. And look at that. Usually, I feel like this traffic would literally stretch across this entire road coming over here, but I feel like it filters out really quite well. So roundabouts, definitely a cool idea. Weapons deals and setting up trade deals through your trade post, super effective. Great thing, recommended for everyone. Yeah, as you can see, we have, yeah, look at that. Trade route completed, and we have over 6 mil. So real quick, I did want to come back and quickly show the completed trade routes. Now, this was pretty much the goal of the entire video, was to get a weapons trade deal export. I wanted one of the best deals we could possibly get to each of the major superpowers. And as you can see, these last 5 deals were literally just that. We started with China, 23,000 units of weapons. The Middle East, 31.5 thousand units of weapons. Russia, 32.5. The USA, 24.5. And then Europe, 31.5. And they went for, you know, a number of months each. It looks like the fastest one we filled out was to China. It only took 72 months. The revenue was 1.5 mil, 2 mil, 2.26 mil, 1.78 mil, and 2.47 mil. And this was the deal that we used to set up, to sort of just like get things going. We set up one, you know, really good deal to give us plenty of money for a while. And then once this one ran dry, we were just about ready. We had set up all of our infrastructure and industries and mines and everything, and that's whenever we set it into high gear and literally just sat back and watched all of our money come on in. We made 6 mil, which is really, really cool. But some other things, I do sort of like this layout. I guess it's really only good if you have,
The youth today.
really only good if you have buildings that are 2x2s. A lot of these, especially like your housing, if you're doing like bunk housing, this would work pretty well. But I really, really like the 4. Yeah, these squares are 4x4s on the inside, but I really like the 4x6s. I think they're a lot better. So I doubt I'll ever really come back to this one, but for this island specifically, it was pretty alright. Trying to get my last few thoughts. I really, really like the new park systems. I like being able to cover up any of like the random like pieces of concrete. Like, you know, nothing goes here. We could put some parks, but I feel like they're kind of a bit cumbersome at times. And of course, each of the industrial zones also had like their own little set of special goods. Like this one, the initial one had our rum, our leather, and our furniture, which I ended up setting up. And then if we go and look at like the next one, it's got some other stuff. It's got plastics and electronics. So we were producing electronics, which is cool. And then we also have over here, I think, yeah, we ended up setting up these little like sugar and cocoa plantations, and as well as cotton and wool. And all of that turned into cloth with our textile mill and some chocolate factories. You know, nothing like some good old fashioned radioactive chocolate. Am I right? But either way, it was a really, really cool island put together. And I'm glad it turned out as well as it did. And I really hope that if you watched along, you enjoyed it as well. Peace.